I want to roll out the red carpet here and allow you to introduce our listeners to House of Bah. What is it, and what are you trying to accomplish through this nonprofit? Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and I am so excited for this episode on multiple fronts. First of all, we get to talk about African food, which is a cuisine that I really adore, but we don't have a lot of experiences with in Omaha, so the chance to learn more about that is really exciting. But my guest today does more than serve great food. He is passionate about helping people, about educating people, and helping them better their lives. So let's get into it. This is the owner of the House of Bah Foundation, Djamil Bah-Traore. Djamil, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of your, distinguished guest that have been on this podcast. So I really, I'm grateful for you to asking me to come on this podcast.
This conversation has been a long time coming, my friend. I've watched your career, I've watched your cooking, and I've seen pictures and stories and everything, and I've just been waiting for the opportunity. And then a couple of weeks ago, you did a dinner at the Bohemian Gardens.
Yes.
And it was a 4 or 5 course?
5 course.
5 course tasting,
yes.
4 and then dessert tasting menu.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yes, this is everything that I wanted it to be. And we're going to talk about that and so much more today. But first, I just want to open it up because I know that there are people who are listening to this and who are watching this who either have extremely limited exposure to African food or have never eaten African food before. So just as kind of an introduction, what are some, whatever direction you want to take this, dishes, spices, techniques, kind of what are some aspects of African cuisine that define what it is?
So I think the one thing for any ethnic food, if I can use that word, is just the flavor profile. By that I mean the spice blend that is used. That's how you can define African food because it varies from every region. Africa has 5 culinary regions.
Right.
And then within each region, there's so many countries. So there's no standards as far as this dish is from this country because, again, we are the same people, but colonization kind of, divided us in a sense. So the flavor profile is what will be the distinguished thing. I say that because people think when you talk about African food, it's something foreign, something different, something that you don't know. I mean, I tell people every time that I can go to any grocery store right here, walk out and make your African food. So it's not things that you don't know. It's just things that you don't know, the way of cooking, the cooking method, the technique that they're going to use, also how they combine the ingredients together, and also the spice blend that they're going to use. And on that note, spice is not spicy. Some people think spice is spicy. Common misconception. It's just a flavor profile. So really, that's what I would say is the main thing. If you view it that way, then you open up yourself to just eat any kind of food from anywhere, whether it's African food from India, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese. It's just food, but they're gonna use some ingredient that you might not know that is more native to the area. In this case, Africa, but it's things that you know. So I don't want to just put it in the silo and say African food is just this, because that's what I'm fighting to change. That's the narrative that I'm trying to change. So when I hear that question, I tell you African food is food that you know. It's really food that you know.
And it was an unfair question to me, to be completely honest, because that would be like saying, oh, American food is the burger. Well, that's not necessarily true. Yes, exactly. we all enjoy burgers, but the Pacific Northwest is all about, they love their seafood. The Southwest is a little bit more Spanish influenced, Mexican influenced. The Midwest is, more beef and steak. But even here, like, to try and distill an entire continent's cuisine down to one spice profile or anything, you can't do it because it's so unique.
Right. If you say American food, what are you going to say? Which origin are you going to pull from?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
The European origin, or the Native American food, or the Spanish origin, or the Asian influence? What is the American food? It's a melting pot of food. So food is food, right? Delicious always going to win. So African food, yes, we have some distinguished, and distinctive also flavor profiles, distinctive, ingredients that we use. That makes a difference. It's kind of like how people discover Mexican food here or Spanish food right here. How people also discover Chinese food right here. It was different because they're like, oh, what is this? They use soy, they use a different, rapid fire cooking, and then, things comes out like, you know what? They use sweet, they use salty, they use spicy, they mix all that kind of thing. Oh, this is new. Now, this cuisine is coming. It's like one of the emerging cuisine, right? Because we've tapped into all the cuisine in the world. Like everywhere, we tap into everything. African cuisine is the only cuisine that people now are looking at like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, we don't know much about this. But you do, because slavery brought it here also. Soul food from the South, it's just African food also, right? So now what people are discovering is because the music's coming through, there's a change and people want something new. And they're realizing that this is the unknown. The most unknown as of now is African food. And because people that are curious enough and open to flavor are tasting it and they're like, wait a minute, what have I been? You know what I mean? How come I don't have this flavor profile, right? So you mentioned coming to the Bohemian Garden at my event. All that it is really is, it's not African food then. I do a lot of fusion. So I can't really call my food one kind of food, to be honest with you. It's more so just blending flavor together, but mostly making sure that the African comes out also,
So I love that you say that, because I go back to that dinner, and this is what struck me while we were having the dinner, and especially as I prepared for this podcast. But I went back and I looked over the menu, and there were different names for dishes, but essentially we had deviled eggs, we had an empanada, we had a bouillabaisse, and we had a tiramisu. But so these are dishes from other countries throughout the world, but with some African influence and spices in it. Yes. And I found a quote from you in another publication where you said, "Our tagline is that we do fusion tastefully, and I want people to have a different kind of burst of flavor in the mouth when they eat our food." So what is your strategy behind using foods that people are familiar with to kind of help them understand not only the flavor profiles, but really African culture?
Okay. So I think I owe that to my parents. I grew up in an Orthodox Muslim household. I come from a family of preachers, if we can call it that way, imams. They just go out there just preaching Islam. My great-grandfather settled in Togo, away from Mali. He married Togolese, had my dad, and then my dad had me also, right? But my dad was open enough and lucky enough to go to school. So I went to Catholic school all my life. So that really opened me up already, And my mom, on my mother's side, my great-grandfather was also the helper and the chef, the whatever you want to call it, for the German when they were colonizing Togo, and then the French. So he was the exception also then, because Africa is a patriarchal society. He was like cooking for himself, even though he had wives and stuff like that, and then also made sure that all his male descendants learned how to cook. That is how my mom, early enough, pushed me into cooking. But because I was open to that at my early age, where I went to Catholic school and mingled with others that are not really from the region that I am from, the same beliefs that I am, and also being curious and reading a lot, right? I used to study with Jehovah's Witnesses. I used to read the Quran, the Torah, the Bible, all that kind of thing. I've always been somebody that's like open to bringing things together. So when I got here, when I finally left the industry that I was in to become a chef, what I saw is that people don't know, and people didn't even give, 2 cents about African food, right? I said that because I got into hot water in some hotel that I'm not going to name names at, because I was trying to cater and give people what is close to the food from them home. In this case, it was an Indian group that was staying at the hotel that I was working at. And then probably sometime 2-3 weeks, a month and a half, they got tired of just eating the same thing. No offense to what we have here. It's just okay.
Sure, yeah.
They wanted something different. And we kind of start talking, and then they noticed I was from Africa. And I was like, let me just make something for you. This is how you will know that food is food. We are very connected. I tell folks that if you take me to Peru, you take me to a market, and I start seeing all the stuff that they're selling, I'll be like, I'm in Africa. If I take you to Senegal right now, take you to Ivory Coast or Liberia and take you to a market, you will see the same thing that you'll be like, wait a minute, are we in Central America right now, or are we in South America, or what are we right now, right? Or are we in India? That's kind of how we relate, right? So I was able to start cooking something for them. And then they feel like, oh my God, this is seem like similar because it seems like you were born in India. Or like, no, I wasn't born, but it's because we can speak a language of spice and flavor that comes right here. But my food and beverage director, put a stop to it. It's like, no, that's not where we are. That's not what we do. I was like, these groups bring about 20 people that stays here. IT folks, you don't think you want to cater to them? No. So fast forward, other hotel, the same thing. I was working there. People think that I'm working there, and people want to come because they think they can have something, and then they cannot. And really, then that's the problem that we have in Omaha. Omaha is a foodie town, and then we do not know that as much as we say it's a foodie town, especially when it comes to catering, some doors are closed to some people that are calling America, home now, New American, right? They can't go to some places to have the event because the food that they seek cannot be offered. Despite the fact that now you have people like me, you have people like Nina, you have people like Libela, you have like Shaima, you have Amina, you have food trucks in town, Hopes, that knows a bit about, and then we can open up ourselves and say, okay, you know what, let me learn. Oh, despite the fact that we see the change in the demography, we still don't want to provide that, right? So for me, it was like, how do I make sure that Dan can come eat this food? If I come and just call it Apam Pransa, you'll be like, what the heck is this? But if I say it's polenta, you'll be like, oh, I know polenta. But I'm cooking polenta in a different way, just using cornmeal to make it we call Apam Pransa in Ghana, Jenkume in Togo. So those are the kind of things. And while I'm doing it, we might not use rosemary and thyme to flavor the broth back home, but why not use the rosemary and thyme? Because I can get you just by that rosemary and thyme flavor. You just feel comfortable. So how do I give you something that you're just not aware of, but you've had it before? You have cornmeal before somehow. You have corn before in tortilla. So you had all of the vegetable before. You had tomato sauce before, marinara. How do I get you the same thing and put something that are comfortable for you that your flavor, your tongue knows, right? And then your sensory, it's like, I know this, and make you feel comfortable and ease you into it. Mm-hmm. That's why we started this. That's how we do it. So folks might say, well, it's not authentic. I tell you, no, it is authentic food, but we just put twist to it. That's what it is.
I absolutely love that strategy. And I mean, just even thinking back to that dinner, like, yeah, when the plates are presented, I'm like, oh, this looks familiar. But then you taste it and it's like, oh, yes, there are notes that I recognize here, but there's also a little bit something different, something that I really like.
Yeah.
And one thing that will always stand out to me, you mentioned Chima's African Cuisine.
Yeah.
And this is to say nothing bad about that place. It was a wonderful restaurant. But the first time I went there, I ordered fufu because I was really interested in it. And it came, and it's kind of a little loaf almost.
Mashed potato bun to get a mustache. Okay.
Yes, and I had never eaten it before, so I didn't know how to eat it. I didn't know that you were supposed to use it to dip and to grab. So I just was eating bites of it by itself, and they came to the table and they were like, That's not exactly it. But when you presented fufu at your dinner, and again, nothing against Chima's, that's how the dish is presented. I should have known that as a diner. I should have asked. But at your dinner, it was served in that bouillabaisse, kind of in that soup, so it was already sopping up all that flavor and just like a sponge. It was delicious.
Yeah.
I am sure when you were working at those hotels, it was incredibly frustrating to be told, no, you can't serve this food. But because those people said no, House of Ba now exists. And I want to open this, I want to roll out the red carpet here and allow you to introduce our listeners to House of Ba. What is it, and what are you trying to accomplish through this nonprofit?
So House of Ba is the social enterprise side of what we do. House of Ba Foundation is the nonprofit side.
Okay.
So I started House of Ba in 2014. While I was still kind of like, finishing school and start working in a hotel and stuff like that. And the goal really for us to normalize what we call now culturally affirming cuisine. So it's no longer just African cuisine, it's more about immigrant refugees. Because while I started doing this, yes, I saw this problem as African cuisine, but I realized very soon that it's not just African cuisine, it's Peruvian cuisine, it's African cuisine, it's Ukrainian cuisine. So we pivoted. Because at the beginning we call it Eat and Talk Africa, And then we pivoted to call it Hasselblad Foundation because not only it's not just African issue, but also people knew Hasselblad more than anything. So I just wanted to because people were just getting confused, like, what is Eating Like Africa? What is the world? Okay, Eating Like Africa became a program of us educating people and Hasselblad Foundation. They work along each other. Whatever I do, whether it's on my social enterprise side or my foundation side, then the goal is, first of all, threefold. How do I emulate others? How do I help other immigrants and refugees that are here who are desiring to be in this field to learn a bit more about what it is, what it takes? Because I had an opportunity to say, I want to do this. But when I decided to do it, I didn't do what a lot of refugees and immigrants are doing. And no offense to anyone, you can just come, find a corner, start some Afghan food, start some Senegalese and Vietnamese food, and hope that's going to work. Hey, it will work. If you take the time to educate yourself, though, you have better tool, you're ready to do it, right? So I took the time to go to Metropolitan Community College and work in 3 hotels in town, work in some restaurant, because I wanted to educate myself. So once now I'm here, I figure it's a matter of education. I'm not mad at hotel people because they don't know the cuisine, but I'm mad when they don't want to open up themselves, right? There's still some event space that when we trying to get there and to be on the caterer list, they look at us like, I don't think you're going to just, I'm like, listen, I'm not just coming here presenting myself as an African chef. No, I am just as any chef as you grab anybody out there. Went to culinary school in Omaha, work in 3 hotels, been doing this for about 15 years now. So I can provide the same thing they can provide, but I just choose to put this to the forefront because you're missing out. And I know that when I go to Plasmon, when I travel to Pittsburgh, or when I'm going to soon go to Kearney to do a wedding, guess what then? They don't ask for the food that they be used to. They want those kind of food that you ate. They want something different, right? And I always bring, the fusion. So this is why we want to educate the community also, so the community will know more about those what we call culturally affirming cuisine, because it's not just about food. It's about telling you a story. It's about bringing you together, getting you to know your new neighbor, using food as a catalyst. And while we're doing that, we also are working with the chefs in town to change their mentality, right? And the goal is to create an ecosystem where I'm not the only one that's providing this kind of food anymore. There is others. So with the Hasselblad Foundation, we work mostly with immigrant refugees that comes and go to a 10 to 12-week program with us. And most of the people that you saw working with me that they are the one that were from the program. They graduate. Once they graduate, we find them either jobs in the fields. Like one of them is a Ukrainian lady now that works at the Le Voltaire after finishing our program. Now most of them work with us on the nonprofit, on the social enterprise side, the catering side. That's how they also learn, their way to maybe open their own things, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to do, because I figure if we don't have a lot of chefs that can bring something different in Omaha, then it's not going to change. It's going to be the same thing, right? It's not going to be normalized. How do we normalize that? How do we help others to see this? This is what we're trying to do with Hasselblad Foundation, where we teach, we educate, and on the social enterprise side, we hire, create job, and give them the experience, the workforce development that they need to be able to just, one, earn income in the field that they want to be in, and also help them to maybe do the same thing that I'm doing, get more people to be in the industry. So that's what Hasselblad Foundation stands for. And beyond that, then, it's bring people together. How do I get you to understand folks in a way that is different? You talk about the bouillabaisse. Why did I do the fufu that way? Because it's easy. When I say bouillabaisse, everybody knows what it is, right? Why can I take all that we had, that was with the palm nut soup, and do something that you're comfortable with? We had an African student in our cohort. There is an African dish that is, I'm forgetting the name now because I can't remember. It has 2 variants to it. If you make it with a meat, the name is different. If you make it as a vegan dish, the name is different also. And we told her we're going to turn it into a Wellington. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, we're going to turn this into a Wellington, and we're going to serve as a Wellington. It's going to have all the element that you have in Afghanistan. It was a hit, man, because it was presented in a way that people here understand. But we use the same ingredient that she would have used in Afghanistan, but we did something different, right? So those are the way that I think we can bring those culture into the forefront so people can understand it. So that's what we're trying to really do.
So
a long way to answer your question, right?
No, that was brilliant. I mean, you are a very well-spoken man.
Well, thank you.
I think at this point in the episode, people are probably pretty interested in what you're doing. I mean, your mission, the food, everything. So you do weddings, you do caterings, you do pop-up events, you do special dinners.
Yes.
If somebody's listening to this and they're just like, I want to try House of Ba's food, what is the best way for them to stay up to date on what you're cooking and where they can get it?
Social media, website. You know, a lot of people ask me, why haven't you opened a restaurant yet? Why don't you have a restaurant? You know, I mean, I hear that a lot, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. and I understand, folks. And I tell them that if I wanted to just do this by myself, I want to just have a spot and then be okay with it, I will have the restaurants by now. Because I know that I'm fortunate enough that what I do, people like what I do. I started doing this while I was still working at the hotel, though, at Hasaloom. When Hasaloom was still open, I would go on the patio and just pop something right there and then do a little mix of street food. That's where it started. Before it turned into full-blown catering, before it became a nonprofit. Because then the thing about it is that what I saw in the industry, I figured that if we don't educate, it's not going to change. Maybe I would have gotten here with my restaurant or anything like that too. But the mission behind it is what got me here. It's what gets people like Omaha Magazine to write about me. It's what gets the Flower of Your Press. It's what got me to be one of the Emerson Collective Fellow this year. It's because I'm not just thinking about feeding people. I'm thinking about get people to come together. I'm talking about building community, right? I've been living in Omaha now for 20 plus years. I don't want to see what I'm seeing because it's a hidden problem. My son today cannot go have a wedding or an event. Or you cannot put up something right here at one of the stadium that we have here, one of the center we have right here, that is about Africa, that's about Afghanistan, and say, you know what, we want the dish to be about Afghanistan. Because for me then, accepting others is not just about putting them in the room and saying that, oh, you're here. It's about also making sure that the food that is on the table is truly a representation of the community that we are. Mm-hmm. So it's about that for me. It's like, how do we get on the table, not just in the room? Right? And I'm a true believer that if you truly love somebody's food or somebody's cuisine, how can you hate them? Right? So how do we use that to make sure that this change, to make sure that in 15, 10 years, somebody at the hotel might say, you know what can we do to help you also as a chef to learn this, know this, right? I like nothing more than being able to introduce my fellow chefs to those cuisines so they can do it. My buddy just called me, and I'm not going to say the name, but he was doing an event this week. He's like, Chef, can I get your spice blend? I said, sure. Can I get your shito? I said, sure. I just walk him through doing this polenta meal that I just talked about earlier for an event. For me, what's winning is the culture is winning. What's winning is Omaha is winning. People are winning because now all these people that you brought together ate something, and he told them, listen, this is an African dish. And they're like, oh, no, man, this is not an African dish. This is a corn, this is masa, this is chicken, this is vegetable. This can just be like something that somebody can make in Mexico. Yes, but now you're learning different ways. So I'm really trying to get people to change their mind and see immigrant and refugees food as something that we can use to bring people together, right? That's the mission behind it, and normalize it. We just normalize it, open doors to everybody else.
That plays right into something that I really wanted to ask you about. Probably my favorite TV show is Top Chef.
Okay.
And there's been a contestant on a couple seasons of that show. His name is Eric Adjapong.
Yeah.
He just opened up a restaurant called Elmina out in Washington, D.C.
This year.
And on the show, he used his food and he used dishes to tell stories of the transatlantic slave trade. Mm-hmm. And he would present these dishes and then kind of talk about why he created it. And it opened my mind, and I learned so much just watching this guy.
Yep.
Do you experience that as well? Is there an opportunity to tell the history of Africa and specifically Togo through your food?
I do that every time. Trust me, and that's one of the things I love the most, right? That's the reason why when you see my menu, I pick those names because remember what I said, right? I want you to pronounce it and then learn and ask a question. I want you to be like, what is this from? What does that mean? Stuff like that, right? So before Eric, you can say folks like Pierre Thiam, right? You can say Kwame also before that.
Yeah.
And you can also say Marcus Samuelson. Those are the ones that kind of introduced a little bit of African in the American scenery. And now it's getting to the point everybody's like, wait a minute, what is this? What is that? That's what we have to do. Yes, every time. I love nothing more than people, like, I'm going to give you an example. We had a wedding where the guys from here, Ashland, Nebraska. The bride is from Korea. They flew their mother and then aunt from Korea to come to wedding here. He's like, Djamil, I need somebody, but I don't think anybody can do this wedding with you. I was like, fine, what do you want? It's like, well, I just want something to be please all the family members. I was like, okay, fine. We did a Korean/African/American menu for him, right? And I kid you not, today, the mother's like, your kimchi is the best kimchi ever. I'm like, no, my kimchi is not the best kimchi ever. All I did then is that I didn't have time to say that I'm going to ferment the kimchi myself. I bought kimchi, but I added shito and other African thing in it. And this lady was like, whoa, how is it possible? Because it brought her to Korea, right? Because of what we can do with it. And then those are the things that we get. When I'm talking about that wedding in Pittsburgh, it was a Haitian descent with a Polish and then an Italian. That's what I like to bring. I like to do, right? I like to get people to know that food is food. And we all are the same, you know it. Like, how can you bring people together? There's nothing more beautiful than that. So what Eric is doing, Thiam, all that kind of thing, is really to normalize something that, because I truly believe it. If we just finished something recently with a church, countryside, church, where we taught 26 American kids for 3 months. We taught them African food, African food. And one of the kids actually was adopted from Africa, and the parent was trying to figure out how to connect him still back home. And that is what he learned. For me, that goes beyond just selling food or teaching food. If that kid now can go to school and then look at that African kid that maybe might bring a lunch from home now differently, they won't make fun of him anymore, because now they know what it is. They know the story behind it. They're going to grow, be a completely different person, because now through food, they got to learn the culture. They got to learn the people. They got to understand what it is, especially if you taste it and you like it. You're like, I don't have any reason why people have been telling me so much that it's ugly, it's nothing, So that's the goal that Omaha deserves. That Omaha is a foodie town. We're lucky to have a lot of great chefs in Omaha, a lot of great food things in Omaha, but we can't say that in 2025 we don't have a space or a place that can give something like this. Now, we're working on that, just so folks know, sooner than later, it's going to happen, right? And when I started this, I told myself, if I'm going to have a place where you can come on a Tuesday or a Monday, I need to create the workforce that's going to be there. Now, you see that's happening. The people that work with me now are all people that went to our programming. So now, the next phase is keep catering, yes, keep pop-up, but also train people. So, yes, we're going to have a space that's going to offer something, pretty soon. So people will be able to come and then say, what, I'm just going to go here and try this and eat this, right, very soon, So it's coming up very soon. So I just, that's all that I can say. So people will tell me.
You're going to tease us, man.
I know people will no longer be mad at me and saying, why don't you have a restaurant to have a restaurant? It's because I want to be able to do with everybody else. I don't want to just be the only one. All right, that's why.
Okay, well, I will be watching that with rapt attention. You have my number. Anytime that you can tell me more, please do.
I will.
But what you just said, I really, really loved, especially talking about those school kids.
Yes.
Because that brought me back to something. Dave Chang, he's a celebrity chef. He's talked about this many times, that when he was a kid, he would bring his lunches from home, and he would have, like, I believe he's of Korean descent, but he would have seaweed and, different things like that. And kids would make fun of him and say, your lunch, smells bad. It's not good. Yeah. And now you go in any grocery store and there's seaweed. What are people eating? They're eating nori.
Yes.
Guess what that is? It's the same thing.
Yep.
So you mentioned, you started House of Bon in 2014. You've been going on this over a decade now. I know that there's so much learning left to do. There's so much more assimilating that we can do, but how encouraging has it been to at least see some of that curtain come down and see a wedding where you're making African kimchi and people are loving it, or you're teaching kids about African food? Like, those walls are starting to come down a little bit, right?
Yes,
okay.
They are. Because, today I can say that, it's a lot different than what it was before, right? In fact, I put myself out there, right? And this is what I have to also tell some of my brothers and sisters that wanted to be in this field. And if you feel like, you're from a different country, you come to America, you got to do the thing the right way. Then, because I went to school, because I understand the game, because I know what it is, I put myself through being part of stuff like March of the Time. Why? Because I want to tell the story. Too many cook in the kitchen, right? Why? Because, I wanted to tell the story. How did I do it? I went there with my buddy Wilson Voltaire a couple of years to help him. And through that, I was like, Brian, you got to have African food right here, right? He's like, well, talk to Jenny. I was like, Jenny, next year I'm doing this, I mean, I know I don't have a restaurant, I have a catering. I'm doing this because I want people to also do that. I'm the only African chef you can say that, today, have done too many cooking in the kitchen 2 years in a row. Probably this year, if I have time, I'll do it again. It's about that. We're probably the only caterer, as far as, from African descent, you can say that is on the catering list of the Kiwit Luminarium. We've done event at Kaneko, right? We've done event at Metro. And just, Saturday here, we are going to be doing the catering the Malcolm X, 100th year gala at the Durham Museum. Why? Because people finally recognize that if you want authentic African food, or if you're doing something that is Polish or from Slovenia or from Ukraine, get Ukrainian chef or somebody that know Ukrainian cuisine to do that. For me, all that I'm saying is that's all I'm saying. If somebody's just from Afghanistan and they want something from Afghanistan, give them that. If you cannot, look around to see if there's somebody else. So that's why what we're doing this, I don't keep this to myself, right? We've been working with Metro, the school that I went to just have a class, a program also where chefs can come and learn this as well. I don't want to keep this to myself because that's not the goal. The goal is to normalize it. If we start having a pop-up, a Vimert, at Avoli, at this, and that, and then putting a little bit of African thing in there, it's going to change people's mind, right? So that's what I'm trying to do now by doing my pop-ups. And then, yes, it's been, different because people now are demanding it. I'm no longer the one that are talking about. People, this is why got me here right then. Now you are becoming an ambassador. You were just voicing this out.
Heck yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is there's still a lot of work to do because we still have some resistance where some places folks still don't know what we can bring and folks still don't understand that they're missing out. Or folks just think that maybe House of Bar, just for hearing the name, is like, oh, you do African food. No, right? And for us, we're okay with it because I'm doing all this without really promoting a lot because of the fact that I can't really promote a lot because if I do that, I get so busy, then I can't do the foundation work. See, then that's really my holdback. I am thinking through that lens more so through the lens of have a spot and stay there. No, I don't want to do it by myself, right? At sometimes I'm like, oh my God, man, somebody's going to open this spot right now and then it's going to be. But no, you have to be patient in your impatience. That's one of my key things, right? Walk in faith, dare to dream, and walk in faith and be patient in your impatience. So now we get into the point where, okay, we're doing it, people know about us. And then I want to really also set the example so people can change their mind about what it is. Nina is doing it, right? Hope is doing it, right? So for us, we're also trying to just normalize it in a way that people will be like, wow, okay, this is African food. And if that can open doors, if after my event at the Bohemian Garden or at my event at the Kiwit or at my event at Durham, you now say, okay, I want African food. I can go to Djamil, but I'm going to go to Shaima, I'm going to go to Nina, I'm going to go to Hope, or I'm going to Lalibela. I feel like we're winning, right? That's the key thing right here for me. So while there is openness, there is also resistance. So it's up to people that are listening to us right now, people that are part of all these foodies, social media groups to say, you know what, this is what I want. Because I tell people, when you go somewhere, they tell you, well, it's not on our catering list, but ask them, well, can you buy out? What is it? Yes, a lot of places will have a buyout where you can bring somebody. Well, if you bring me, I have the same thing that they all have. I have the insurance. I have the credential. I have the permit. So why don't you want me to come cater food? Unless it's beyond just not knowing or wanting to, you just don't get it. You don't like it. So that's what we're still facing. But we've come from far. And it's getting better.
Well, that's kind of what I love about the foundation side of things. And you're talking about this education that you're giving to refugees and to immigrants. And yes, some of them graduate from that program and move right into House of Bah.
Mm-hmm.
Some go to other restaurants.
Yes.
And that's where the opportunity to really spread is.
Yes.
Because if one of those graduates goes through your program, they're going to become, I'm just going to use Shido as an example, because that is it's like a spicy condiment that you served at the dinner, and like you could have put an entire bowl of that on our table, and people were just putting it on every bite because it's so delicious. So I'm going to use that as an example. Somebody comes through your program, they learn about Shido, how to make it, what it's best applied in. Let's say that person graduates your program and they go work at the Boiler Room. They go work at a restaurant where it is accepted that sous chefs, that cooks, they have a say in dishes. Yes, they can do a special. Yeah, and they'll say, hey, you know what? I think Shido might go really well in this dish. And if that chef is open-minded, he says, yeah, let's give it a try. Boom, all of a sudden, that hits the menu. Every diner who comes in, whether they know it or not, is experiencing African food.
Yes.
You get enough of that spread, all of a sudden, African food is no longer, whoa, this is new to me.
Yes.
But it's like, I've been experiencing this all over Omaha.
Yes.
Maybe I didn't even know it.
Exactly. And that's the point. That's why I do pop-ups, right? That's why I did pop-up at the Fig. That's why I do pop-up at the Bohemia. That's why I did pop-up at the Voltaire. And all these chefs that you just named right now, I know most of them to Too Many Cook in the Kitchen. I had it, still have it on my list to hit them up and say, okay, let's just do a special. Let's do something. But the work that came along, just because, Diane, up until August 2020, well, first of all, August 2024 is when I became like a full-time with it. That's when the board decided to pay me as a full-time person. Before that, just like part-time, kind of just doing it, honestly.
Holy cow.
And it was me and also part-time, grant writer as a staff. Like everything I was doing, you name it, even the website for House of Bah Foundation, House of Bah Food Group, I'm the one doing it. Everything, right? And then I didn't get somebody to help me until October of last year. That came on board, and start doing other things. So we were lucky enough that we're small nonprofit, but what we were doing was just a big dream, a big thing, right? People would see the empathy like, okay, you must have staff of now. We don't have a huge staff. But what we're able to accomplish this year is that because of me not being able to go out there, and part of the reason why it's because of that. I didn't have time to just do the marketing thing that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just focused on the mission. Do the class, do the course, and then do the catering, and then do the capsules, and that's it. So now there's a couple of chefs that have joined me to help, Chef Me and Chef Cosmos, to help also do the teaching. So it's going to allow me to have more time to be able to do other things like those pop-up that we're talking about, where I can go to teammate and say, team, let's do something right here. I can go to my buddy, John Engler at Avoli. Let's do something here, John, but we still need people to ask for it. Or I still need to show that this is okay, this is good for people to be able to open, because you got to get it. I don't blame them. You have something, and then you doing your restaurant. You don't want to try something new. You want to stay in your safe zone. But food is about evolving. Food is about changing things. Right? If you have Kwame or Eric doing it, if you have like Jamie Oliver putting jollof on his menu in London, you got to be like, what is going on here? And I tell them, if you as a white guy make African food, you're going to sell it more than me making it. Because people are going to be like, wait a minute, what is this? People are more curious about it, right? And you're missing out. You don't have to completely change it. Just do it as a special. You do special. When I started doing pop-up at Le Voltaire as special, even though Wilson's from Haiti, I brought the African thing in there. I brought some people that now discover Voltaire because of the African connection, right? So now they come back and try Voltaire food because of that. Vice versa. They can learn also the other non-African customers that are over there. they start loving this, they start asking, right? So this is what we need. We just need us to come together, work together. And I'm telling every chef in Omaha, trust me, not to change anything, but food is about what is trending, what is going on right now. And if you look at the only untapped cuisine that is left per se, is African cuisine. We've tapped into every cuisine. The cuisine that we haven't tapped into today is African cuisine. So, and really, it's not African cuisine. Then, corn, beans, rice, legumes, vegetable, meat, fish. It's the same thing. We don't eat corn as tortilla back home. We eat it as a meal called ugali. If you go to Kenya, Sadza, South Africa, Akume, Plakali in West Africa, it's the same thing, right? So it's food that cooked differently. So once it's normalized in Omaha, trust me, people are going to finally be like, oh my God, because you go to big states, big cities, you have that already. Omaha is what's missing. A spot now, today, there's African Cocktail Lounge where you can go have something. There's Nina, there's Shima still doing this. Or again, we see a little more of it. I just want people to do it the right way. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't do it the right way, it doesn't represent these foods the proper way, right? I saw I think one of the last episodes you had, Ahmad, African cuisine, I believe, on your podcast. I listened to it, it's part that I like. One of the things that I also say is that let's learn also. You got to speak the language. You need to make sure that you understand how restaurants work in America, how it is done, how you can draw people to come in. It's important. So for me, I want to see them stay open for the longest possible. But you got to also know that educate yourself as well, right? So some of us, when I say, as I'm talking to immigrant chefs that are coming here, open a restaurant also, don't understand that it's important to get to know others. Get to know the other people from other restaurants, or get to go to too many cook in the kitchen, or get to go to much of times. They don't see that as something because they focus on, I'm selling, people will come and eat. I'm telling them no. That is not going to change the mind. That's not going to further the mission. If you want people to really come eat more of these cuisines, you got to work hard, educate, and make sure that, the narrative's changed.
But, I can understand that from restaurateurs' mindsets in some ways, because the margins are so small in restaurants. Most restaurants, if they're doing well, are operating on a 5% margin. So yeah, a lot of times their head is down, and it is, how can I sell this many roasted chickens today? Yeah. How can I sell this many pepperoni pizzas today? This is how my restaurant stays alive. This is how I continue to have a job. Mm-hmm. How do we, this is such a big question. I don't even know if there's a good way to say it. And I think,
how do we change their mind?
Yeah, we're all still figuring it out at once. But how do we create that space where people they're able to step back a little bit from the day-to-day and say, hey, we've got this entire food community here. Mm-hmm. This whole thing needs to evolve, not just your restaurant. Mm-hmm. How do we start to, and I know the changes have started to be made, but how do we continue to push that change forward?
I think that's why for us, we're going to three elements. Education, the new immigrant chefs, on their own culinary heritage, because we have two programs of three. One of them is African Culinary Academy, where we only teach African food. That's it. One is called Immigrant Culinary Integration, where it's open to any immigrant, and we do more about immigrant food. While we're teaching you about your own culinary heritage, we're also teaching about American food, or what we can call American food, because of the fact that this is what is known in the industry. You got to understand both to be able to know that. Second, the community. Doing classes with the kid, going to community centers, teaching other people, doing an event is also just changing the narrative, changing mindset, right? Third, again, the reason why I haven't done this is because capacity and time. I've been talking to Brian O'Malley, MCC now. We've just done everything. It was supposed to be done last summer. They didn't get because I had surgery in my eyes. But I really want to do this program or this class where on Mondays I get my fellow chefs that I went to school with, or we consider the one that came out of the culinary school, to come and go through 6 weeks of, trying African culinary regions. It's about educating. It's about getting them to get a taste of it. And I'm not saying, just learn because I want to change. I want to change. No, just go back and see how you can use it in specials. That's the only way that they can see it, right? At the same time, we are trying to put ourselves on every catering list at any event in Omaha possible, right? We're going to Waterloo, had a wedding. We're going to Plasmon, had a wedding. That's how we're going to spread the word. People have to taste and see before they believe that, okay, this is possible. So my job for me is just trying to do that. Whatever it is that you say, there is people that are not traditionally African or immigrant, and I can come and provide them with something, I like to do that. And our capstone, we invite people, the community to come. That's the education component. We believe that if we do this, then we're going to set the stone. We're going to create this ecosystem where people are asking more about African food because they know, and immigrant food also. But by the way, because like I say, Afghan, Ukrainian, Venezuelan, we have seen a lot of nationality in our program. That's how we can get to that point. We can't be mad at them because they don't know it, but we have to try to educate. Once we educate, we also got to give them the freeway and the freedom to use it or not. It's up to them. But if they don't, then you can be like, okay, you can only do so much. But I believe once they see it and see the transformation, and then see somebody just say, I'm going to add a little shit, I'm going to put a little yazi, which is spiced blend, in my consomme today, and kind of see how it will turn out. And people be like, oh, okay, because like Chef Brian might like to say, delicious always win. That's how you get them. Because if it's delicious, then it might be like, wait a minute, let's run this special again. And the number will tell you that people just, seem to like this though, okay. Then that's how we can get to the point. So it's a long road. And this is why I told you again, I didn't start with the opening a restaurant, right? I'm seeing it as how can I transform, educate, and get us to a bigger place where everybody is. Now today, if it's a Hasaba or Hasaba Foundation, whether it's on social media, people will say, yeah, I know this guy, that's what he's doing. And then I'm here today, you have a lot of followers, a lot of people that listen to you, a lot of people that might be like, okay, what is this thing right now, right? So if you have a catering, you have a small event, you have whatever it is, okay, give us a try, right? Let's bring those folks that we train, if we do a pop-up, we do something. In fact, this, I cannot come to your show and not say this, I know it's going to air later on, but the thing about it is that some of the honors that we've been bestowed upon us is to hold Jacques Pepin's 90th birthday in Omaha, Nebraska. We are the only Nebraska organization that was allowed to do this. For me, Jacques Pepin is one of the reasons why I start, culinary school, because when I was thinking about how to do it, read his book Apprentice in the French version, I was like, I'm going to do this, right? And for him to see what we're doing here and then say, keep doing what you're doing. Because one of his quotes is that in the eyes of the stove, we're all equal. So that is like something to me that is like beyond anything else. That's what I'm trying to also do then. I'm just trying to Omaha has been so good to me. I want to give back by building a better community where everybody's accepted, and using food as a catalyst. We call it culinary advocacy. It's not just food then. I'm not just about food. I'm about bringing people together. I'm about giving opportunity to others. I'm about making us, a better community where we accept everybody else.
And I think part of that is educating people and helping them understand, and this is specifically on African food, but it could be on any cuisine, that they're already eating food that has these influences in it. Like,
yes.
If I told my family tonight, I want to go to La Bella and I want to, get the big injera bread and all these dishes that you've never heard of and rip off pieces of, to me, that sounds amazing. My family would probably be like, I don't know. That sounds a little out there. But if I said, hey, let's go get Southern food tonight, they would be like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. And like you said, Southern food has a ton of African influences. It came from the slaves. It came from, other places. Like, to help people understand that they might already be experiencing this cuisine that they think is foreign, that they think they've never had before, but actually it's a pretty integral part of their lives already. I think that would help bring those barriers down as well.
A lot. And that's why when we do our food, we're trying to find those common things, right? And then not to mention, forget that also, Africa was colonized by European. America was colonized by European. After that, a lot of European came to America. So Italian influence, you will find it in Libya, like in Africa. You'll find it also in Ethiopia a little bit, right? Even though they didn't stay. You'll find Spanish also influence, right? You'll find Portuguese influence in Africa. You'll find Middle East influence. You find even China and Asia influence, India influence in Africa. So French. So when you look at all this, when we talk about dishes, it's not far from what it is, because those techniques, those things that we know here have also been things that colonization brought in Africa also. So when we come here and then cook, you know that you're going to be like, how is it similar? Because yes, they brought the same thing Africa also. Now you bring the whole African aspect into it and you have something different or something new, not different new. So yeah, you're right. This is how we need to get people to understand that you've been eating it. That's why when it's called, what is it called again? I forgot. I think something of it with I was going to say the name of that dish in Afghanistan. And I told Layla, okay, we're going to do it. And she's like, I was like, and I love this then, by the way. Every time we have a class of new students, sometimes some folks have been here 2 months, a month, 6 months, all that kind of thing. They barely can speak English, right? And then you say, okay, for the final event, I tell them, listen, I know this is how we cook it back home. We are gonna have a big meal. Everybody gonna be, but this is fine dining. We're gonna have to do something, different. You're like, oh, chef, I don't want. What are you talking about? They're apprehensive about you gonna change the dish. I was like, no, they just wait. And we have this tug of war. They don't like it. I was like, don't worry, we're gonna, okay, bring all the ingredients that you use back home. We get it. Basically, give us a list. We buy it, and that's okay. Now my job is, how do I change this from what you see to what it can become? That is acceptable to you. Turning that Ushak, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, from that to a Wellington, and then people are like, oh my God. It's like that's what we as a chef have to do to make sure that people understand it. Because now, if I break that down and tell you this is exactly the same dish you're eating, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. I'm less afraid of it. I'm less, apprehensive, I understand it now. So that's the work that we have to do. And for me, that's why I want to do this so I can emulate myself so others can also grow up. I mean, do this, and grow up. The kid grow up being open to this, and come together. This class that we want to do as parents, we want to do class with everybody in the community, but it's just capacity and then space. Because you have to know that our model is that we go through partnership with others and use the space to do our classes. We don't have a physical location here. Mm-hmm. It's by design because we were so focused on the mission than anything else. People have approached me, business people have approached me, or, people that own money, right now I can also, banks have said, okay, you know what, developers have approached me. We'll put you right here. We'll be with you. We want you to open a restaurant right here. Like then I'm telling you, every 6 months somebody approached me to say, as a developer, I say, okay, you know what, that's not the time for me yet. This is important. If I do that, then who's going to do the work of educating others? Who's going to do the work of going to those catering places? It's like we got to do it intentionally. We do it our own way to make sure that what you said is what happened. Educate, break down the wall, and then get people to really, truly fall in love with this cuisine that they already know about.
That is a very selfless thing. I mean, I know running a restaurant is extremely hard, so it's not just like, oh yeah, if I started a restaurant, I'd immediately be successful.
See?
But I believe that you would, because I believe I've had your food, I've heard your passion. We're up against the clock, so we don't even get time to go into your background, which is incredible. I'm going to have you on a second time just to talk about how you got here.
Yeah.
But I believe that if you opened an African restaurant and presented it with that fusion fine dining lens that you do in your pop-ups, people would dig that.
Yes.
But would it have the same cultural impact? Would it affect the community overall as much as you're doing right now? Maybe, but maybe not. So I applaud you for being patient and the impatient, like you said. I love that. I'm going to start using that, by the way. And saying, you know what, maybe a restaurant, maybe some kind of physical location is in my future, but right now, this community needs me in a different role, and that's the role that I'm going to take. I'm just, I feel so inspired. I just want to go, run through that wall and just, I just be like, people, food is food. Yes, there are different cultures, there are different cuisines, but, there's so much truth to what you said about like all these cultures really come from the same place, and there are differences, but there are influences of everything together. And I just love it. This has been such a great conversation. I always prepare a bunch of notes and everything. We didn't even touch my document. I had like 3 pages. We got through like half of one, and and I'm so happy because this was so much more interesting. Chef Djamil, I am just so encouraged by you and what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
By the food that you create, by the people that you empower. People, if you're watching or listening to this and you have the opportunity to go to a pop-up or a catering or anything like that House of Ba and Chef Djamil is a part of, that's something that you want to do. Trust me, I've waited far too long to go to this dinner and experience this menu, and it was fantastic. But just start thinking about food differently. Don't put food in buckets, but open your mind and kind of just be like, food is food. People are people.
Yes.
And those things can come together beautifully. And I think that's what House of Ba and your foundation is doing. So, Chef Djamil, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today. You talked about it. You are such a busy man. You got so much going on, and you took an hour to come on this show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for giving us the opportunity, and thank you for being the voice for all the people that do this too. We got to be thankful to you as well. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.